One of the most fascinating things about Superman the Animated Series is the way we get to see the world rapidly change following Superman's debut. If you look back at its predecessor, Batman the Animated Series, the world was relatively low-tech with the odd case of weird science and body horror. While it had a timeless, classic look, the world felt old and lived in. But when Superman arrived on the scene, things changed quite rapidly, as villainous figures like Lex Luthor made huge advances in science, all in the name of getting one up on Superman. His presence also attracted the attention of extraterrestrial foes, like Darkseid, who had tried to impose his will on Earth. And one of the characters that really exemplifies this is Bruno Mannheim, the head of the criminal organisation Intergang. When we first meet Mannheim, he's a cookie-cutter crime boss, organising bank robberies and illegal gambling rings. But by his final appearance, he is Darkseid's representative on Earth and equips his soldiers with otherworldly tech, which is quite the glow-up. But before I get to that, I first wanted to discuss the comic book version of the character. Ugly Bruno Mannheim first appeared in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen number 139, in a story that also featured comedian Don Rickles for some reason. Mannheim earned his nickname because of his rough, girding face and his odious cigars. Mannheim doesn't play a huge role in the story, but he is revealed as the leader of Intergang, Metropolis' equivalent of the Mafia, and he targets Don Rickles, the Guardian, and Jimmy Olsen after they put their noses in his business. Mannheim kidnapped the group and insisted on sharing a meal with them, a meal that was laced with pyrogranulates, minuscule grains that spontaneously combust. Mannheim told the trio that they would all burn to death within the next 24 hours and left them to their fate. Maybe he should have stuck around to make sure they really did perish because they were able to save themselves. Mannheim and Intergang were the creation of legendary comic book writer and artist Jack Kirby, and they had a minor role in his Fourth World saga. They were regular criminals that received resources from Darkseid to cause chaos as he attempted to search for the solution to the anti-life equation, and often served as a distraction for Orion, who was trying to thwart Darkseid. As the leader of Intergang, Mannheim represents the rarely seen seedy underbelly of Metropolis, proving that crime and corruption can be just as dangerous to Superman's world, or at least Jimmy Olsen's, as alien warlords and rogue scientists. Mannheim wasn't used all that often in the comics until the early 1990s, post-Crisis on Infinite Earths, when much of DC's continuity was reset. Apparently, the various crises do not impact Darkseid, who remembers everything from each reality and can keep it all perfectly straight in his head, so he has one up on me there. And Mannheim returned as an agent of Darkseid through an intermediary named Morgan Edge. Edge was the head of Galaxy Communications, one of the planet's most significant media corporations, but he was secretly an agent of Darkseid. Mannheim had few interactions with Darkseid, but Intergang still benefited from apocalyptic technology, and they were a long-running thorn in Superman's side. When the connection between Edge and Intergang was exposed, thanks to an investigation published by Clark Kent, Mannheim was forced to reveal that he wasn't really a human being. He was from Apokolips, and his special ability was bio-armor. While these abilities were light years ahead of everything a mere human could achieve, he was no match for Superman and was sent to Stryker's Island prison. Eventually, he escaped after Intergang turned on him and tried to kill him in prison, but he didn't get very far. During a battle with Superman, Mannheim attempted to escape via a boom tube, which Superman disrupted, seemingly killing Mannheim. As these are comic book characters, we're talking about nobody stays dead forever, except for Spider-Man's Uncle Ben and Thomas and Martha Wayne. And Bruno Mannheim did return, but that was after Superman the Animated Series started airing, so it isn't really all that relevant to this video. The key thing is that Intergang and Mannheim by extension served as the perfect bridge between Superman's grounded crime stories and his more cosmic adventures. On the surface, Intergang was an organised crime syndicate like any other, but in secret it was headed by despotic aliens. Although without Mannheim, they faded away into obscurity. When it came time for Superman the Animated Series to enter development, the team decided that they were going to adapt the work of Jack Kirby. So it won't come as a surprise that Bruno Mannheim appeared. Perhaps unsurprisingly, their version of Mannheim more resembled Kirby's original character. Mannheim was a human gangster and head of Intergang. He wasn't a visitor from Apokolips, he didn't have any bio-armor, he didn't collaborate with Morgan Edge, who didn't even exist in the show, by the way. He made his animated debut in the Superman the Animated Series episode Fun and Games, where he played a significant role in the origin of Toyman. At this point, he is an alleged gangster who ruined the life of Winslow Schott, the man who would become Toyman. Shot's father was a gifted toy maker that took out a loan from Mannheim in order to fund his toy factory. However, Mannheim ran an illegal gambling ring out of the factory, and when the police raided it, Shot was sent to prison. Toyman states that his father had no idea about any of the crimes that were taking place in his factory, but it's hard to imagine how that could be the case. He had to know that something was going on, as I discussed in my video about Toyman. As always, I've linked to it in this video's description and the info button in the top right corner, so watch that later if the subject interests you. Regardless, with his father in prison, Toyman entered the foster care system, and his father passed away before he could be released. Once he reached adulthood, Toyman sought revenge, targeting Mannheim with his deadly arsenal of toys. This episode depicted Mannheim as a brutal, pragmatic criminal, one who was more concerned with maintaining his image as a legitimate businessman than with the lives he ruined along the way. Mannheim was very keen to present himself as a philanthropist, but in reality he was a cruel, heartless crook. He may very well have gone through hell at Toyman's hands, but it's hard to sympathise with him, given the fact that he refuses to take responsibility for destroying the Shot family. And you have to wonder how many other lives he had ruined on his rise to the top. Mannheim returned in the episode Tools of the Trade, where we see how Superman's arrival has impacted his business. He had amassed an expansive collection of explosives and guns, all of which proved to be completely useless against Superman. And it's at this point that he was approached by a mysterious figure named Kanto, who presented him with an arsenal of high-tech weapons without asking for anything in return. Mannheim knows full well that free things can wind up being very expensive in the long run, but Kanto assures him that his mysterious benefactor only wants what's best for them both. Even with these advanced weapons, they're still no match for Superman. With Superman and the police closing in, Mannheim fled the scene, hitching a ride with Kanto through a boom tube, where he came face to face with his benefactor, Darkseid. While he may have been a powerful figure in Metropolis, on Apokolips, Mannheim is little more than a grovelling worm cowering before Darkseid. He is completely and utterly out of his league and should have given up there and then. Yet he lusted for power. When Mannheim was eventually permitted to return to Earth to prepare for Darkseid's coming in Apokolips Now, Part 1, he took the war weapons of Apokolips to help Intergang rob banks. This really illustrates how pedestrian Mannheim is and how basic his ambitions are. He was ecstatic to have gotten away with $20 million, but this was not at all what Darkseid had in mind when he allowed Mannheim to return. Money means absolutely nothing to one such as Darkseid, and he burnt the cash with his Omega beams to remind Mannheim of his mission. Darkseid sought to conquer Earth in his relentless quest to solve the anti-life equation. This would effectively remove all free will from the universe and have every living being bow to his will. Mannheim's thinking was far too small-scale for Darkseid, and this would prove to be his undoing. Despite his ambitions of being a king, really he was nothing more than a pawn of Darkseid, and once he had served his purpose, seizing control of a nuclear power plant, Darkseid abandoned him, leaving him to be killed by the detonating reactor. The fact that Mannheim didn't see this coming illustrates what a fool he was, the king of fools as Darkseid brands him. His foolishness can also be seen in his desperate attempt to escape his fate, jumping in a speedboat to try to outrun a nuclear explosion. He gets points for effort though. One of Mannheim's defining traits was his insatiable hunger for power and wealth. But this hubris ultimately led to his undoing. Mannheim failed to realise that in Darkseid's eyes, he was entirely disposable. With Mannheim gone, Darkseid took full control of Intergang, placing it under the leadership of Granny Goodness, one of his most trusted and cruel servants. Once again, don't forget to check out the video I made about her. It can be found in this video's description and the info button in the top right corner. Under Granny's rule, Intergang was transformed from a traditional crime syndicate into something far more dangerous. Gone were the old-school gangsters. Granny moulded Intergang into a cult-like army of lost youth in matching apocalyptian servant uniforms, weaponizing the desperate and the disenfranchised. In a way, Granny's version of Intergang resembled a twisted take on Peter Pan's The Lost Boys. She preyed upon the young, offering them power, family and a sense of belonging, all while indoctrinating them into Darkseid's cause. This shift marked a significant departure from Mannheim's era, As Intergang was no longer simply a criminal organisation, it had become an extension of Apokolips' influence on Earth. Granny used them to try to destroy the planet by constructing a machine that would draw a passing comet into a collision with Earth. It just goes to show that you can never trust the beings of Apokolips. Any rewards they may offer you, wealth, satisfaction, power, will be fleeting and will ultimately lead to your own demise. Just ask Bruno Mannheim. He may not be as well known as Lex Luthor or as significant as Brainiac, but Bruno Mannheim's influence on Superman's world cannot be understated. He embodied a different kind of villainy, the kind that doesn't come from intelligence or superhuman abilities, but from an unrelenting thirst for power. His rise and fall illustrate the inevitable fate of those who enter into agreement with Darkseid. The only thing that Darkseid can be trusted for is betrayal and abuse. In the end, Mannheim's legacy is one of greed, betrayal, and destruction. A fitting end for a man who thought he was on the same level as a god. Okay, that's it for this week's essay. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really enjoyed the video and have the means, please consider making use of the thanks button to send a buck or two my way, because every little helps. I offer channel memberships for $1.99 a month. This will get you early access to my weekly video essay, priority responses to your comments, members-only videos, custom emojis, and an icon on your profile indicating that you're one of my people. And special thanks to my channel members. Everyone who was a member at the time of this video's creation is listed on the screen right now. If you want to see your name amongst all these wonderful people, join the channel now. Next time, I'll be back on Monday with another Creature Commandos video. This time I'll be talking about the Bride and how she resisted against her intended purpose as the Bride of Frankenstein. Then on Friday, I want to keep talking about the characters seen in Jack Kirby's Fourth World Saga, but this time it's going to be Big Barda and the role she played as a headline member of the Justice League Unlimited. Hope to see you then.